The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Makes Radio. So what's on your mind today? We're open line through till 1. Tomorrow the Cabinet Office Minister is going to be here, David Ashford, MHK. But today, it's you. You're the star today. Call 66 13 68. Text or WhatsApp on 166 177. Email studio@makesradio.com. Lots of feedback since the other day when Terry Lydiard was on. Terry Lydiard, the man who started Manx Airlines, one of the people involved at the very beginning. And what we used to have then and what we have now in terms of air connections. And I know things are a lot different, and I know there's been COVID in between. But this is an interesting message which I'll give to you now. From Texter 665 who says, Andy, my brother started with Manx Airlines on day one of its operations. He worked on check-in. He then moved to be cabin crew. He then did his pilot's training with Manx Airlines. They trained him flying as a first officer, then as a captain. After flying with Manx Airlines for many years, he is now the captain of an Airbus 350 with Virgin Atlantic. He loved his employment with Manx Airlines, and he wouldn't be where he is today without them. Just a story to indicate what we used to have in Manx Airlines, and that was just one of 750 jobs, and starting in check-in. It can be said to be bottom of the tree. It's where you start. It's a start. And worked his way up to become a captain of an Airbus 350 with Virgin Atlantic. That doesn't happen now because we don't have an airline here. Whether or not we could have one, and there is lots of speculation about what it would take to start it. Well, point one is you'd need an awful lot of money. You need capital to get started. Anyway, thoughts on that. And also, I was talking about democracy, or somebody was talking about democracy and the state of democracy the other day. And I mentioned one of my oft-mentioned axioms, which is the public is never wrong. The public can't be wrong. The customer is always right. And a note in from 806, this message says, Andy, the public voted for Brexit. Well, in the UK they did, certainly. Now widely accepted by 806s as a complete disaster for the UK economy. Well, that's 806's opinion. So the public will generally get things right, but only if information is provided in order to make the decision, if not lies, fake news, fake information and misinformation, which is currently a huge problem. So how do you get round that? What do you do? And again, this is a moot point. Who's to say what is misinformation, what is disinformation? Who's to say what's lies? Because half the time it's an opinion. And we get lots of comment on Makes Radio on Mannin Line about people saying, that person's wrong. Well, if it's an opinion, it surely can't be wrong. The opinion may be based on information that you don't like, but an opinion is an opinion. So have you got any thoughts on that? And again, it's really important as we come towards the election later on this year, because we'll get to know our current politicians very well. Certainly the ones that are standing, will be making sure that we know all about them with their leaflets and their manifestos. And the wannabes, the people who want to be MHKs, will be desperate to tell you all about themselves. We have a democracy, and democracy is a bit like a machine. If it's used properly and if it's used, then it's going to work. If you don't use a machine for a long time, it tends to just seize up. Anyway, if you've got thoughts on that, or if you've got the answer to it, I'd be really impressed. I've lost count of the number of ferry cancellations in recent months, says Gaz. If climate change is going to make storms worse, do the supermarkets have contingency for food storage facilities? Well, for a certain amount, yes, they do. Not for sandwiches, because That's what happens every time the ferries don't go, that the companies on the Isle of Man that make sandwiches start making an awful lot more, because lots of them bring in sandwiches from across that were made, well, who knows, 36 hours before sometimes. I've never had any problems, says George. I don't fly in winter. This is about the situation regarding aviation on the Isle of Man, and that we don't fly to anywhere near the number of destinations that we used to, and consequently the other way back. And obviously the situation with the air traffic control compounds the fact that sometimes late flights just don't go. I don't fly in winter, said George. I like EasyJet. Speaking as a leisure traveller, they're economical prices. The decline of air services, says Paul, is directly associated with the investment in Ronaldsway Airport. It now has broken equipment, not fit for purpose, and subcontract services that don't deliver 100% of the time. The government is to blame, not the airlines that still have the stomach to fly here, says Paul. So, well, that's the situation. Maybe you think the airport is absolutely fine. Maybe you think the service from the airlines is absolutely fine. And again, for the vast majority of people today, it doesn't matter. Just the vast majority of people on the island today aren't at the airport, aren't using. But at some point, you do. And when you turn up, it becomes very important if the flight isn't happening, or if that piece of equipment isn't working, or whether there's only one line open through security. Can you do that? Do you know what the situation should be? Where's the money going to come from, and who's going to do it? And text to 004, this is regarding emergency services. You used to ring Douglas Police Station and an operator would ask fire, police or ambulance. Now you get a 30-second choice of services. I'm presuming this is a 999 call, 004. You get a 30-second choice of services and then put through to a police operator. I called, was on hold, waiting for 15 minutes to speak to a policeman who was in charge of a criminal investigation. I hung up after being tired of being in a queue. I tried ringing again, but the credit on my iPhone ran out while waiting again. So what's happening with this? I think there should be a free number for everybody to call. What are the thoughts from the listeners? This whole frailty thing that's been talked about today is the subject of lots of comment. Exactly what frail means. Recently, the Medical Staff Committee at Nobles Hospital raised serious concerns with the state of bed capacity there. In response, MHKs, while disputing some of the figures, explained some of the ways in which it's hoping to ease the pressure on clinicians, particularly those in emergency services, emergency department, the ED, what we used to call casualty. One such step in the allocation of the allocation of a consultant geriatrician to provide frailty-focused treatment planning as close as possible to the point of admission. So, what do we mean when we talk about frailty? Here's consultant geriatrician Dr. Juncan Jerry, Mark Young and Michelle Breed, who's head of service for intermediate care.
Frailty is, well, it's a common use word that everyone's heard of and knows. And if you look at somebody, you can often say, well, they look frail, don't they? But actually, within medicine, we have taken the word and it means clinically significant things. The simplest way to describe it, it's a lack of bounce back ability. When you're 20, if you get a minor infection, within a week you might be back up and running and going again. If you're 90, that same infection may bring you into hospital, may cause delirium, may cause a hospital stay of 3 weeks, and may end up going to a nursing home. So fundamentally, frailty is a condition where you haven't got the same reserves as somebody else, and you respond very differently to the insults of being ill, or even like losing sleep, or even being constipated. Anything can come along and make you be quite poorly.
I suppose people generally would associate it with the elderly. Is that a bit of a misconception? You're shaking your head here.
Yeah, I find that is a misconception, because being frail can be of any age. And as you said, it's around the fact of you may have several conditions that then actually make you frail and make you less likely to be able to manage something else that comes along from a medical point of view.
We assess frailty not by someone's age, not by their appearance or anything else, but actually it's a functional assessment of the things that people can and can't do. We use something called the clinical frailty score, which is multiple little things along the way that all add up to an opinion about what degree of frailty somebody has. So the presence of having care needs can be part of the process. Grip strength could be part of the process for some people, how much you can squeeze. Being able to stand up and sit down more than 5 times in a minute suggests that you aren't frail, and less than 5 times it would suggest frailty. So basically we look at multiple things that you can and can't do, and it's the totality of those things that make us come up with a diagnosis of frailty.
Interesting. You don't have to be old to be frail. How will your treatment at A&E vary if you're considered frail or not? If frailty is proven, are you then considered not fit enough for treatment? That's Marie's question. Thank you, Marie. Are you considered then not fit enough for treatment? Well, from Manx Care and the Isle of Man government, they say that being classed as frail in A&E, ED nowadays, doesn't mean you won't be treated or that you're considered unfit for treatment. According to the Manx government and Manx Care's frailty guidance, a frailty assessment is used to make sure patients get the most appropriate care, often involving specialist geriatric teams, quicker assessment and support to avoid unnecessary hospital admission where it's possible. Decisions about treatment are based on the individual's overall clinical condition and the likely benefit from treatment, not on frailty alone. In many cases, frailty assessment is used to provide more tailored and appropriate care, not to deny treatment. This is interesting because a few weeks ago, I don't know whether you recall, there was a lady who sent an email in talking about the fact that she waited 5 hours at ED, and when she got there, there was a lady in a wheelchair, frail old lady who was there already, and she was still there sitting in the same chair when this lady went through to be treated. So that's more. If you've got anything to add to this, or indeed if you have any experience of this, then it will be interesting to hear what you have to say. I mean, Teresa Cope has said in the past, and she's on fairly shortly on Mannin Line, obviously ED's just not big enough. It's just not big enough, obviously, with a bigger and bigger population. And it could be, and anecdotal evidence has said, that if some people can't get a GP appointment, some people just pitch up either to Mandoc or to the emergency department and just present themselves hoping to be seen. So whether or not this is an education matter in that some people don't know that you just can't, hospital isn't somewhere to go because you can't get a GP appointment. Anyway, on another subject, Linda said, apparently, are Ramsay rates going to go up to cover the new private company taking on Balladul, the Northern Civic Amenity Centre? Why is this? I never use the amenities and I'm a ratepayer. I'm sure that I'm not the only person. If it should be that if you use it, you pay separately for this. I don't think it's fair. Well, this new company is taking over Balladul fairly shortly because of all the stuff that's been going on before with Bride not wanting to put the money in and then DOI going in to run it and pay for it as well. Text to 221, different subject. When's the wall of the sunken gardens going to be fixed? We'll have to wait for 6 months again. Is it going to be looking like a mess during TT? Well, it's April next week. TT is not that far away. I wonder if it's going to be done. And on the subject of the postal service that we have now, and again, anecdotal evidence about things taking a lot longer than they used to. Tony says, Andy, I posted a birthday card in Douglas to be delivered in Douglas. So posted in Douglas for Douglas. It was late for the person's birthday. It took 9 days to reach its destination. It's embarrassing how some services have gone downhill. We've had lots of evidence of this about stuff taking, particularly with stuff from across, taking weeks to get to the Isle of Man. And again, we don't know whether it's a delay or something going wrong in the UK or whether the situation, the system's bunged up over here. The lady in Peel highlights a point I can't understand. If you have a problem with the way a matter is dealt with by your local authority, and we're talking about Peel commissioners here, who do you appeal to? As there's nobody outside the commissioners, their clerk or the chairman, to appeal to. If your problem is with them and the way they dealt with your issues, where and who do you write to? Who are the local authorities answering to above their clerk and chairman? It's impossible to find an email or a person or a department to write to. I've tried the DOI and even the minister, to no avail. Can anybody say? Rick wants an answer to that. Who do you appeal to? Or if you're dealing with your local authority and there's a point of dispute and you disagree with their resolution, who do you go to? Robert's with us now. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well.
Right, well, I was talking to, I'm not going to have my say today, I'm just going to muse something with you, if that's okay. I was talking to Chris Thomas over Messenger, and he was telling me about how they've gone into debt. A bit like when, bit of an aside, but when Microsoft bought LinkedIn out, they went into a huge amount of debt over it, and it wasn't a very good service. I'm not saying the Manx Steam packet isn't a very good service, it's a lifeline, but we seem to have gone into a huge amount of debt over it, and we're servicing debt. Is that going to be the case for a lot of other services that are coming on board now? And are we effectively going to become a vassal state to the bankers?
Well, People and organisations always borrow money. It's a fact of business. Sometimes it's better to borrow and to pay a low rate of interest than to shell all the capital out at once. So, what were they referring to? The steam packet.
Well, it was a steam pack, but just on a point of order there. I mean, I believe that the Isle of Man isn't supposed to be wholly in debt, isn't it? By the Crown, it said that you're not supposed to be in debt.
Well, we're not supposed to run a kind of fiscal deficit, I think. We're not allowed to do that. But borrowing money within the government is entering into a commercial agreement, not the same as running a fiscal deficit.
Right. Okay, well, maybe that's where I've gone wrong. But I mean,
bear in mind, Robert, that the steam packet has been a cash cow for everybody who's owned it. All the companies, Sea Containers, Santander Bank, whoever it was, or the Espirito Santo, who owned it, they all made a fortune out of it. Now we've got it. We're taking the profits. So presumably those profits are being used to finance whatever debt it is.
So it's a good thing then?
It's not for me to say whether it's a good thing. It's just that's probably what's happening. The steam packet makes a lot of money.
Okay, fair enough. I thought that when they said they were servicing debt, okay, I've crossed my noodles too much. I thought that when they were servicing debt, I thought that, because if you look at America and you look at the UK, they're massively in debt. You know, they've got a national debt structure and things like that. I thought we were heading into those zones, you see.
No, nowhere near that. No, I mean, where they're kind of in debt to 90% of their GDP, that's nothing like us at all, no.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot.
You're safe to have lunch. Okay, good. Thanks, Robert. 23 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio on Mannin Line. Brian said, regarding the comments on democracy in elections, I think it's wrong that the president of Tynwald is elected by outgoing MHKs as it is now. An MHK can stand down before the election and then get re-elected as president of Tynwald, which can then be a job for the rest of their life. I think ex-MHKs should stand down for at least 5 years before putting their name forward for the presidency. It would mean there's a break in the chain and a distance between the new MHKs. Well, we've had some terrific presidents of Tynwald, haven't we? I mean, we've had some really good presidents, and some of them went from being MHKs and MLCs to being president. I mean, Claire Christian, not the Claire Christian that's the MHK at the moment, but Claire Christian, the sister of Anne Crane, obviously daughter of Sir Charles. Noel Kringle, again, former MHK. Would you want to do that? A lot of these MHKs have got an immense amount of experience, know all the standing rules, forward and backward and on the top of their heads. So what do you do about that? It's a question that comes up often, the fact that the MHKs elect the MLCs and they then all elect the president of Tynwald. One thing to bear in mind is we have a fairly shallow talent pool, don't we, on the Isle of Man? There aren't many people who are involved, relatively, that are involved in politics. With the appearance of the airport in mind, this is WhatsApp 449, the appearance of the airport in mind, what about the local horticultural societies being offered the chance to showcase their skills and compete against each other for who can make the best of the airport and even aim to look as good as the Channel Islands? It's fair to say that the airport doesn't look as good as it has done in the past. There's gardening at the moment, gardening and landscape maintenance taking place at the main car park area and the long stay car park at the airport. These works are primarily affecting the standard and premium parking zones, and some areas are going to be closed, so you may be unable to park in your usual space. Contractors are on site to provide guidance and assistance when needed. By the way, the red and green parking zones won't apply for the duration of the works. Customers can park at the standard rate until the maintenance is complete. So, and by the way, they say, don't remove the cones or park in areas that have been clearly closed off or coned off, because you'll be in trouble. How do you feel about that? And again, this is something we talked about for some of the municipal areas that are less than pristine in horticultural terms. Asking the local horticultural societies to showcase their skills to make the airport look a lot better than it is. And it's fair to say it has looked better. I saw in A&E, says Sheila, a pensioner in his 80s who had fallen down in his garden and was badly injured. He had blood all over his face and down his jumper. He was in a wheelchair in the middle of A&E from 9 a.m. when I was there. 3 hours later, this poor old man was still in his wheelchair. By this time, the blood had dried up all over his face, and he was in pain, possibly in agony, says Sheila. Nobody helped him, or even cleaned him up. I didn't get out until 7 o'clock in the evening, and that poor old man was still waiting in the waiting room in a bad way. Thank you, Sheila. And regarding politics and local government, I sincerely hope there's an external investigation into Peel Commissioner's situation. If there isn't anything untoward, surely everybody's going to be completely exonerated. I have an opinion on the situation with the Peel Town Commissioners and those involved, including the clerk and the chairman. And the husband of a commissioner. They should clearly state any memberships or affiliations so there's full transparency. My opinion, says 851. I'm beginning to wonder if we need to start getting rid of a lot of people who don't seem to be able to do their job they're employed to do on the Isle of Man. It may be time for some changes, says Gary, darkly. What do you mean? You've got to be a bit more specific than that. And Jamie in Mackhold says, Andy, regarding a government-owned airline, what our government should have done was keep state ownership of the most valuable UK landing slots, particularly Manx Airlines Heathrow morning and evening slots. If you have those, you can negotiate with airlines. Right, text, email, call and WhatsApp. You're on Mannin Line through till 1 o'clock today. We're open line today. Tomorrow, David Ashford, MHK, Cabinet Office Minister.
This is the Isle of Man talking. The Mannin Line.
Save 17% on the Loganair tartan sale with promo code SALE17. Book now at loganair.co.uk. T/Cs and exclusions apply, subject to availability.
Elevate Rubber Cover from Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 49667.
This is my last will and testament. To my family, I leave years of financial headaches, large legal bills, and the prospect of having to sell our home to pay for it all.
Is that the legacy you choose to leave? Without a proper will and thorough planning, it could happen. Man Benham Advocates, experiencing wills, probate and estate planning with a friendly service to make sure the future of your loved ones are secure. Don't put it off. Call 639 350 for your free initial consultation with Man Benham. Here for you.
Whether starting a new business or building up your existing business, come and talk to the accounts and tax experts at Nicola Bowker & Co. With their holistic approach to business advice, Nicola Bowker & Co. will work with you to achieve success. For accounts that work, call 861 271.
Show.co.uk The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
Looking for an exciting new experience on the Isle of Man? Then step into the brand new Soral chocolate making workshop, where you become the chocolatier. Experience Soral's premium quality hands-on. Taste, design, melt and fill your own luxury chocolates. Then take them home the very same day. Perfect for friends, families, date nights or special occasions. But hurry, spaces are limited, so book now at soralchocolate.im. Soral Chocolate Workshop. Crafted with quality, made by you.
Are you a small charity here on the Isle of Man? Are you looking for volunteers, hoping to raise awareness and chasing those crucial pounds and pennies to support your work? Well, Manx Radio can help. You could be our next 1 to 3 Charity of the Week. With daily on-air coverage, podcast and social media promotion, we can help support you and those you help. Just email the numbers 123@manxradio.com and listen out for the feature each weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster Mai, good afternoon. It's 29 minutes before 1 this Thursday lunchtime on the Isle of Man. Complaints about local authorities can be sent to the Tynwald Ombudsman. Tynwald Ombudsman is Paul Beckett, Tynwald Commissioner for Administration, and you email ombudsman parliament.org.im. That's Paul Beckett is the Tynwald Ombudsman. If you want to complain to somebody, if you've had a dispute or something with a local authority and you want to find out more, Paul Beckett is your man. Why does our government not want a forensic audit of Manx Care, says David. Well, the Isle of Man government says it doesn't support a forensic audit of Manx Care because it believes there are already strong financial oversight and audit processes in place. According to statements made in Tynwald and reported by this radio station, the Chief Minister said a forensic audit of Manx Care is a very specialised, time-consuming and, importantly, expensive investigation normally used where there's evidence of fraud or serious financial wrongdoing, and he said that the level of investigation hasn't been justified by the evidence so far. The Manx government says Manx Care is already audited through regular financial reporting, scrutiny by the Department of Health and Social Care, Treasury oversight, board papers, annual reports and a value for money review by the Auditor General. Now, some politicians, including the Oncan MHK Julie Edge, have argued for a forensic audit, which they say is needed to fully understand spending. But at present, the government's position is that the existing audits and oversight should be used rather than commissioning a forensic investigation. David, I hope that answers your question. That's what that situation is. Will flight prices be changing and ferry prices be changing as the price of fuel is set to change, says Pammy. Well, they won't go down, will they? That's one thing that's for certain. It just depends, I guess, how far ahead they've bought their fuel. But obviously, any increase now will start filtering through at some point. We'll try and find out what's going to happen but I'm guessing that the steam packet has bought its fuel a long way ahead. Texter 008 says you were talking about the fact that the Ben McCree sailings to Dublin port have been held up because there's some sort of dispute going on with Holyhead. They've already postponed. Are they making more money out of the Ben McCree on charter than would running it to Dublin? They've already postponed the refit because of this charter, says 008. Well, they say next week they're going to be announcing the timetable for the Ben McCree going to Dublin port, as well as obviously they're dovetailing with services to Northern Ireland. But that's the issue. But I mean, you wouldn't set up a timetable to Dublin and then ignore it. I mean, we're guessing that it is going to happen at some point, and it will come off charter. I was at the post office the other day, says 951. There was a lady with a load of letters trying to put them through a piece of card with a slot in one at a time. People were standing in a queue. She was still there after I got served and left. A birthday card to Southern Ireland, by the way, was £5. Well, the price has gone up, hasn't it? I say good luck, says Foster. Good luck to bringing more tourism to the Isle of Man. The new steam packet from Larne starting next week's £26 for a foot passenger one way. Not bad. However, for whatever reason, steam packet put the fare up to £60 for Easter week, or over £300 to bring a vehicle from Northern Ireland. It will be cheaper for me to fly to the Canary Islands. Cheaper food, cheaper drink, and a cheaper selection of accommodation. This is Foster. I don't know where you are, Foster. Are you off the Isle of Man? I'd still love to visit the island and support the tourist industry. Your hoteliers must have an uphill struggle. Just a thought. One thing we don't have is weight of numbers, Foster. We don't have the critical mass of people that will justify bigger aeroplanes and more frequent services that can drive the price down. There's only so many people come to the Isle of Man. And I understand the point about TT, but that really has always happened. But anyway, wherever you are, I hope you come here. Anybody who accepts, and we're coming back to the politics and the MHKs and the severance situation of a sitting MHK who doesn't get re-elected, anybody who accepts a job on a 5-year contract would not get that kind of severance pay at the end of it. If you accept a fixed-term contract, you know that you have to do well enough to be awarded a continuation. So why do MHKs get anything at the end if the Manx public think they're not worthy of election? Says 272. Well, simple really, because that's the contract at the moment. That's what is in the terms and conditions. Until somebody wants to break those terms and conditions, or somebody wants to repeal them and take it through, then that's the way that it is at the moment. And a message in from Wendy, who just said, Andy, what is going on in Peel? Well, there's a lot going on in Peel, and there are growing questions about whether an internal investigation is the right way to handle this dispute at Peel Town Commissioners. The Onken MHK, Julie Edge, she chairs the Tynwald Select Committee on Whistleblowing, and Julie says the approach risks conflicts of interest, and it may not be seen as fair. Julie Edge.
From many of the situations that we've heard about previously, and I'm not going to talk about the current committee, but previously with whistleblowing, the type of concerns that are now being raised by the authority are a good example of the retaliatory behaviour that an individual, when raising concerns, has, and particularly in my previous report, there was many concerns like that. Obviously, then we've heard from a previous commissioner and previous MHK for the town, Hazel Hannon, and she agreed with the concerns being raised. But then we've heard from Alan Jones, and he's saying that wasn't his experience. So, I think the key here is that the authority have said they are going to do an investigation, but it's internal. And I think this is where the issues have been arising, because an internal process against the individual raising the concerns, is that fair?
And how important is it, in your view, that any investigation, whether internal or external, is not only fair, but also seen to be fair by the public?
I think it's really important that it's clear, it's transparent, independent, because it's actually an elected official, and then the authority's taken that elected official to an internal investigation. I think that's definitely, well, it's clearly going to be conflicts throughout that whole process. We need to ensure there's no conflicts, things are independent, to ensure that the individual, Katrina, is getting a fair hearing.
Well, the situation at Peel Town Commissioners rolls on, and at some point it will unravel, and at some point we'll know exactly what is going on with that beach stage proposal. Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hiya, Andy. Just listen to what you were saying there about the severance pay.
Yeah.
And how can you change it? Now, many people remember that a number of years ago, the MHKs, they were on a pension scheme, a non-contributory one. And the ruling was brought in that they then were going to contribute to their future pension.
Yeah.
For the period of time, they were MHKs. And So that is possible to change the legislation, because when you're coming in and they now put their names forward, they then put the terms and conditions of employment, and if the severance pay at the end of the next incoming MHKs is reduced to what would be the standard rate of government redundancy pay. And redundancy pay, well, it's a wrong terminology, because if you're made redundant, the job disappears. So, as it is, it's a severance pay, and that should be in line with the standard government redundancy pay, because the job no longer exists for them. But, as I say, people say it can't be changed, Obviously it can, because they changed the ruling, as I say, on the pensions.
Oh, it can be changed. Somebody's got to want to do it. Somebody's got to put it forward.
Well, yes. We've got a chief minister there, haven't we? And, the public opinion would more or less demand that it was changed, because that's a serious amount of money for a number of people who don't get in. And as I say, I think their wage is about 80,000 a year. So 6 months of that is equal or more than a lot of the people who are working for government are receiving, and they're getting that as a bonus. So I think it's totally wrong. So somebody's going to have to step up, put their head above the pavement, and say this will cease.
Yeah. It may be, Howard, that at some point, I mean, let's just say this September, there may be a sitting MHK who doesn't get re-elected and who may stand up and say, I don't want it. Keep it, I don't want it.
I very much doubt it.
Howard, I've got more faith in human nature.
Well, I used to have. But the way things are now, they've already received in the wage structure over the period they've worked between £350,000 and £400,000, which is not bad for a 5-year term and a nice little pension after it. And if they've done the work, fine. That's what they say. They deserve it. But you've got people in there now that are you don't hear anything from them. And they're picking up a serious amount of money, and then because they haven't been doing what they should have been doing, then they don't get re-elected, and they get a golden handshake when they walk out the door.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's a golden handshake, isn't it?
It is, yes. And, instead of getting a P45, which the public have given them, and as I just said now, a golden handshake, there's not many firms in this island would do that. If you're not good at your job, you don't stay in that position for very long. But you don't get what they're loosely saying severance pay. You get a redundancy. So somewhere in the system, somebody's got to stand up and have the courage to say this. I remember the pension scheme when they said you will have to contribute to it in the future. There was one man was adamant he was not going to, and in the public opinion, he never got back into Parliament. So the same thing could happen here, but they should readjust the terms and conditions, because that contract is finished, and the new contract coming up for the new MHKs who want to put their name down have got to be able to say, well, I want to do this, I want to serve the people of the island, and I'm going to get well paid for it. And, here, because the job is finished, the contract is finished, the terms and conditions should be finished.
Okay. All right, Howard, good to hear from you. Thanks for being with us.
Take care. Bye now.
16 minutes before 1. I want to get to Joan, who's with us now. Hi, Joan.
Hello there, Andy. I just heard you talking about the hospital, and we had an experience ourselves about a month ago when my husband had a nasty fall outside the house, and we had to call on the ambulance. which came in a very short time, which we're most grateful for. And I'd just like to say to the public who are saying about the length of time they had to wait, etc., I do understand their frustration, but having spent a full day there with my husband, we were looked after so well. Yes, we had to wait, but the A&E waiting room was full. There were people at the end of the day when we came out about 5:30ish, sitting on the floor. There was a lady who we spoke to at 10 o'clock that morning who was going off to Clatterbridge the following week with lung cancer, was still there. There was a very elderly lady who'd quite obviously had a horrendous fall and her face was covered in blood. And yes, you could say, what on earth is going on? But if you've been there for a day yourself and seen the pressure that those nurses, doctors, carers are under, we have no right to condemn them.
Again,
we need.
One thing I should say, Joan, this is not a go at anybody in particular, because obviously the people people who are working there are trying their darndest to get everything done and look after everybody. But somewhere there's a disconnect somewhere, Joan.
It must be on high. It's got to be on high, because what we seen that day was appalling for the people who were waiting to be seen, but it was appalling to see the way that staff, the nurses, the doctors, the carers, were being ground into the ground. They really were. My heart went out to them, how anybody turns up there day after day to be confronted with waiting rooms full of people. I just don't understand. My husband was lucky. He had an X-ray, and to be sure, they did a CT scan on him, and we were very lucky. He got away with no broken bones, but we've seen a doctor again, and then we were told that because there were no broken bones, they can't leave you in hospital. Well, we were delighted because we didn't want to be left in hospital. With that in mind, we had a physio, a very nice young man, very competent, who tried my husband on a couple of stairs, but could see on the second step that he wasn't steady enough. So we then said that we will go home, of course we will, but we do need the services of an ambulance to get him into the house. That was taken on board. There was no problem. About 10 to 5, 2 nurses came to us and said, we believe that you're going home, etc., etc. We said yes. And they said, we're very sorry. We can't tell you what time we can get you home. So I said, okay, that's fine, I understand, thinking that it might be 7 o'clock, 7:30. It could be midnight, or it could be the middle of the night. So I just looked, and my daughter looked, and then they said, we also have a small car. I think they called it the blue light car, but I can't tell you if we'll get that facility. Do you have anybody that can get you home? So we were very fortunate that we rallied the troops around and we got my husband home. The service we've had from the community care has been superb, so I'm not complaining at all. I'm basically sticking up for the nurses and the doctors and saying that whenever we hear them complaining, observations of what they're working under, I've seen it firsthand, and my heart goes out to them. And any faith that I had on my husband or family that we had that Manx Care could make a good job of it, I'm afraid it's gone. They've had nearly 5 years of spending thousands and thousands of pounds trying to do this, trying to do that. And the other thing before I go, the lady said, the nurse said to me, I'm very sorry. I said, don't apologise. it's not you, I said, who should be apologising. It's the ones on high who should be apologising. She said, the problem we've got, we need the ambulances. We have 7 people to be discharged, and we have 7 people waiting to go into their bed. And I said, that's absolutely fine. We will get home ourselves. So it's basically thumbs up to the nurses and the doctors and the carers, etc., but thumbs down for the ones on high. They haven't got control.
Okay. How's your husband?
Definitely haven't got control.
How's your husband?
My husband he's just finished his services coming, and he made, for the first time, he's made me a ham sandwich and a cup of tea for lunch, so it's all good.
Appreciate it, Joan. Thanks for calling today.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Bye now.
Bye.
If you have children, pets, or a house, talk to Peace of Mind about a will or power of attorney, which will help family members when it matters. Prices from $199 plus VAT. Find us on Facebook or call 632 610.
Visit Ramsey Art Gallery for a fabulous range of top brand watches and stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course our gallery of prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite the RNLI shop.
Discover your dream home in Andreas with Cal Developments Limited. Their quality new build 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties offer countryside living with amazing views just 5 minutes from Ramsey. These spacious homes are built for modern energy efficient living with ground floor underfloor heating and air source heat pumps, plus contemporary kitchens, beautiful bathrooms, landscaped exteriors and more. Reserve yours now. Cal Developments Limited, Oatlands Road, Andreas. Island living redefined.
Manx Solar Electrical offer wise solar and heating solutions for home and business. We're the Isle of Man's trusted experts in solar panels, Tesla battery storage and energy-efficient heat pumps, helping you power your home sustainably and save money. Call 66 5800 or visit manxsolarelectrical.com.
Come to Manx Solar Electrical.
Our island's energy reimagined.
When you want the best.
Cybersecurity is important for any business, no matter what the size. Protecting both you and your client's data dramatically reduces the risk of a cyber attack. Luckily, it doesn't have to be expensive. At JTG, we're island-based and tailor our approach to cybersecurity on your needs. Protection can be as little as the cost of a coffee a week. Click jtg.im and get your free business health check today. Keep you and your business safe with cybersecurity from JTG.
Keen to end a run of 3 straight defeats? FC Isle of Man are back in action this weekend for their penultimate home game in the NWCFL Premier Division this season. Touch towards goal here, bit of a scramble. Crook, who manages to swivel and put it into the top corner. The Ravens return to the bowl on Saturday to face a City of Liverpool side fighting for survival in their battle against relegation.
What a game. Is that the essence of what football is about?
Join me, Rob Pritchard and Darren Timpson for FC Isle of Man versus City of Liverpool, kicking off at 6 p.m. this Saturday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Well, regarding opinions, says Anthony, opinions need facts to be stronger opinions. Otherwise, opinions might lead to misinformation. Facts need opinions to be meaningful information and add things like a sense of humour because we learn and develop differently from each other. And thirdly, fiction needs facts to add realism and truth. I hope this helps. Sounds great. And Julie said, Andy, when is Braddon Road going to reopen? It's been closed for over 6 months now, and the condition of the road we must use in the meantime is shocking. I've spent over £500 getting my car repaired due to the road service being in a terrible state. Surely this can't continue. Will it even be open in time for the TT when the access road will be complete? It's going to be chaos there. Well, the latest information from DOI shows that the Braddon Road and surrounding junction works are part of the long long-term construction scheme with traffic restrictions legally in place till the 23rd of September this year. Get that? 23rd of September indicates the works are expected to continue for several more months, which means that road disruptions are likely to continue through TT, although the TT access road system will still operate to allow vehicles to cross the course when roads are closed. DOI said previously that the works are being carried out in phases to maintain access where possible, but it's not published a single full reopening date yet for the overall works. So now you know. We're less than 6 months away from the House of Keys general election. Residents, that means you, are going to be heading to the polls on the 24th of September to choose your representatives for the next administration. Each week, we're sending a reporter out to speak with people in different constituencies about what matters most to them. And since the focus is already on the west of the island this week with what's happening with Peel and the beach and the stage and the commissioners, we thought we'd hear from the residents of Peel and Glenfaba into this Manx Radio microphone. Over to the west.
The main thing for me would be letting dogs on the beach, especially like the far end. There's a lot of dog owners and people complain about like dog muck being left on the pavements, but they're not allowed on the beach or anywhere to run in the summer.
It just doesn't make any difference. They don't listen to you. You know, you could go and tell people what we should have or what we need in Peel, and it just doesn't get done.
What do you think is needed in the area?
Well, somewhere for the kids to go, you know. I mean, they tried to put a bowling alley and things down that end, and that didn't happen neither. You know, we need somewhere indoor for the kids because the summer's not that long. The weather's, obviously, we need indoor play for them. There's just nothing. Prom doesn't look that good. It's a lovely prom. Light it up, put flags up, make it really nice. Make it somewhere where the kids enjoy walking because there's lots of things to see. That's what they need. There's just not enough in Peel for kids.
To be perfectly honest, I think Peel needs better representation than what they've got at the moment. What seems to be happening is nothing, to be perfectly honest. It seems to be that you've got two representatives, but you never see them. You don't see much of them at all. You never hear much of them at all until this time of year. Then they all seem to come out of the woodwork, and that's about it, to be honest.
Peel was actually starting to look and feel very down at heel, but I think it's improving so much, so quickly, and I take my hats off to the incredible people that are backing this. Starting with Black Dog, I think what Mike and Josie did there was unbelievable. Now with the coffee shop, Trader Law, and then also Kim and her incredible cafe.
I hope that they actually build on the infrastructure because we do not have the infrastructure to cope with that many properties. We don't have the doctors, we don't have the dentists, we don't have the hospital.
There we are, your opinions in the west of the Isle of Man for Glenfaba and Peel, and the reporters will be going out. If you do get asked, I'd urge you to have a think about what it is you will say. And in the meantime, by all means, you can do it right now if you want.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
And that goes, 682-631, that goes for every constituency. Wherever you are, if there's something that you think needs to happen in any particular constituency, call the answer phone on 682-631 and tell us all about it. Have a think about what it is you're going to say, because we're going to put it on air. And obviously, anything like personal abuse won't get broadcast, anything like that. So if there's something that you think should happen anywhere, or something that you think your constituency needs, it may be roads, it could be infrastructure, as you heard that lady say for Peel, it could be facilities for young people, could be anything really. Have a think about what it is. Really, I think the acid test is, what would you say if prospective MHKs were coming to your door today? What would you say to them? What is it you would like from the new administration? Because we're going to have one, come what may. A bit like this, it's a message in from 696, and it says, Summerland. What are we going to do with Summerland? Why don't we find out how much it is going to cost to do something with Summerland? And if so, why don't we set up a 3-year GoFundMe page? Stay with me. For a multi-million-pound building to be built on the old Summerland site. It could include an under-18 disco, an ice rink, somewhere for the younger population to go, games rooms, cafes. so on. With a completion date of 5 years, the new building could be run by volunteers, like charity shops do, plus paid staff, yet have the building contents available to very cheap entrance fee for Manx people and holidaymakers. We wouldn't need a penny from government. There are lots of businesses, and we have a great community who would contribute, lots of charities, so why not start one for our children and do something with Summerland? Any money made by the new finished adventure building after wages and the like could be reinvested in the building. All it would need is for the government to give this new entity the land, even just for a token £1, just to do something with it. What do you think we should do? Something to do with Summerland. Text, email, call and WhatsApp, and you're on Mannin Line. And in just a few moments' time, we'll be heading over to Tom Kane and the 1 o'clock news on Manx Radio. Remember, that telephone number again is 682-631, 682-631. This is Manx Radio from Douglas in the Isle of Man.